The sensor hummed, but the girl just kept painting her nails. Clara sat on the edge of the prep bay bench, her movements slow and steady as she applied a thin layer of red lacquer. Outside the reinforced glass, the Borea's null chamber roared. It was a hellscape of artificial ice and wind designed to crush the strongest trainees in the sector. She did not look up when the warning klaxons blared for the start of the drill. 47 trainees had failed the drill today. Krog warriors with hides like steel plates had collapsed. Vesper hunters with built-in heat-seeking biology had been dragged out, frostbitten and broken. Instructor Vaxon tapped the glass with a pale, clawed finger. His heat-sensitive scales shifted from a calm blue to a deep, agitated gray. He watched the girl through the thermal monitors. She was small, soft-fleshed, and entirely unbothered. "She is dead weight," Vaxon clicked to his subordinates. "Place your bets on how long she lasts." The pool favored her failure in the first 2 seconds. The atmospheric generators surged, dropping the room to 90 degrees below zero. Vaxon pulled his cloak tighter, his scales pulsing with the cooling relief of the internal thermal nodes. He expected to see the human crumble. He expected to see her limbs lock and her lungs seize. Instead, Clara stood up, tucked her red bottle into a side pocket, and walked straight into the teeth of the gale. She did not run. She did not seek the warmth nodes installed in the floor. She just moved. "Why is she not shivering?" Vaxon muttered, leaning toward the console. "Candidate is at steady state," the technician replied. The console displayed a constant temperature. It was impossible. Physics dictated that a mammal of her size should be a statue by now. She was not enduring the blizzard. She was waiting for it to finish so she could finish her drink. She sat down in the center of the kill zone, the wind gusting at high speeds, and pulled a matte black steel thermos from her pack. She unscrewed the cap with a rhythmic, sharp sound. A plume of steam rose, a tiny, defiant beacon of heat in a landscape of death. Vaxon's scales flashed a violent, panicked gray. The realization hit him then, a cold shock that made his secondary heart skip a beat. The sensors were not broken. The data was not lagging. She was not just surviving. She was treating the Deathworld conditions as a mild inconvenience. She took a slow sip, wiped frost from her eyelashes with a cloth, and leaned back. He stared at the screen. The Krog were gone. The Vesper were gone. Only the human remained, sitting in the middle of a lethal storm, drinking cocoa as if she were in a park. "The wind is hitting 200 kilometers, the technician whispered, his voice cracking. "She is not even bracing. She is just existing." Vaxon leaned in. He needed to see her face. The camera zoomed. Clara looked directly into the lens. She was not fighting the wind. She was leaning into it. Her eyes were calm. There was no fear, no biological stress, no sign of the panic that usually broke their candidates. She was a biological anomaly that defied every tactical model the Academy had ever built. "Is the drill hitting max capacity?" Vaxon demanded. "Yes, sir. It is at maximum load." Clara stood up. She did not stumble. She walked toward the center of the chamber, her gait as steady as it had been in the prep bay. She sat down again, placed the thermos on the icy floor, and pulled a small tool from her kit to clean her fingernails. The storm roared, tearing at the walls, but she ignored it. Vaxon felt his authority shatter. They had been looking for strength in muscle, in hides, and in flight. They had missed the point entirely. This was not about surviving the cold. This was about a level of mental and metabolic control that the galaxy had never seen. "End the drill," Vaxon barked. "Sir." "End it, now." The wind died. The hum of the generators faded into an eerie silence. The hatch hissed open, and the freezing air poured into the hallway. Vaxon stood at the threshold, his scales rigid and cold. Clara walked out, the thermos clinking softly in her hand. She looked at him, smiled, and shrugged. "A bit chilly out there. My toes are a little stiff, though." She walked past him toward the locker room. Vaxon did not stop her. He watched her go, then turned back to the control board. He keyed the command to lock the file. This was a secret he could not afford to share. If the galaxy knew that a soft, small human could survive the Borea's null chamber without even breaking a sweat, the balance of power would shift overnight. He looked down at the console. Clara had left the thermos behind. It sat on the cold steel desk, a silent, hollow warning. He stared at it for a long time. It was just a bottle of steel and rubber, but it felt heavier than a weapon. He had spent his life teaching trainees how to fight, how to armor their skin, and how to survive. He had been wrong. The most dangerous creature in the room was not the one with the thickest hide. It was the one who could drink tea while the world tried to kill her. He reached out and touched the thermos. It was still warm. He pulled his hand back as if he had been burned. The storm had left no mark on her, but it had permanently changed him. He walked to the window and looked out at the empty training range, his mind racing with the implications. She had survived because she did not care. She had survived because she was stronger than the cold, stronger than the drill, and stronger than his entire concept of what a species could be. The thermos sat on the desk, a small, dented cylinder now holding a place of honor. It was the only evidence left of the girl who walked through death and came out wanting dessert. Vaxon walked to the desk, picked up the thermos, and placed it inside the secure evidence locker. He locked it twice. He would not report this. He could not. He sat back in his chair, his gray scales finally beginning to fade back to a dull, tired blue. Outside, the chamber was empty, but he could still hear the clink of metal against metal. It was the sound of a new reality. He closed his eyes, but the image remained. The thermos sat in the dark of the locker, a quiet, cold, steel warning. She was gone, but the lesson remained. The humans were not just another species. They were a force of nature that the galaxy had failed to read. He would never look at a small, soft-fleshed mammal the same way again. The drill was finished, but the true training was only just beginning in the shadow of that small, black bottle. He turned the lights off and walked out of the command hub, his steps heavy with the weight of a truth he was never meant to know. The training ground was silent, but in the silence, he heard the echo of a human girl laughing at the cold. He knew then that they would never truly be able to control them, and for the first time in his long career, he was truly afraid of what humanity might do if they ever decided they were actually tired of the cold.